Now, when I turn on, okay. Is that it?
Okay, can you hear us? It is Hughes.
Maybe we have written something. It's just
With this one.
Good morning.
Good morning. No. Oh.
I think with my computer work, I turn off this. Maybe it's better. Let's see.
Oh, okay.
Okay, let's do it this way.
Well, I'm just confused here.
Now maybe it's working. It's working. Oh.
Okay. No, not This is not the solution. Like it says mute. I'm so lost.
Yes. I don't know why. Because it is already
Close the audio here, but
so it's connecting all by my computer the sound. Oh, it doesn't work very well.
can you try now?
Is this?
Yes.
It's working? No, not now.
No.
No. I think now.
Can you hear us? No, it's not.
Okay.
Okay, so like there's an
Phone instead, maybe.
okay, but like still there's an echo.
Now it's working.
Like I closed this output, but I'm not sure if it's if the others can hear you.
Can you hear me? Yes, it's working now. It's working now.
There is no echo.
No.
No, if you are hearing us,
Floor.
the output should be. Yes, because here we. Hello? Hello? Yes. The microphone is here.
Yes.
It's here now.
Can we connect the output?
Like right now, like we can close the speakers for this room.
Yes.
there's no need. So like,
Yes, and after, yeah, we can do that change. Well, this is connect. So after that, we can use this microphone and this.
yeah, like
Okay, and
for the
stop this
virtual.
one. Yes, for
Yeah.
the next.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, yes.
so it's mute this one.
Okay.
You can-
Okay, and now we can go like so.
So you can start?
Yes.
Okay. Good morning. Sorry for this delay. We have technical issues, but now we can start. We go start with workshop with the title Computational Mathematics, Statistics, and Information Management. And the first speaker is me, Flora Ferreira, and I want to share my screen.
Like from here you can.
Okay.
So I think I gave. Oh, okay, fine.
Yeah.
Now we can share the screen.
It's showing. I cannot see the screen.
Yes, the screen is visible.
Where?
Like this is your screen now. Like if you go to your presentation.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the first talk is the title is a meta-analysis approach for estimating salary mean and its confidence interval. This work is done with the collaboration with a company that I'm a worker abroad and some people from academy. Bread is a company that have the mission to investigate, develop, and apply solution in bread construction. The service that provided by this company include planning of the budget in a for a bridge construction. So when the company do a budget, they need to know what are the costs that they have with the people that are necessary to perform a project. So, and there are many websites with the salary information, and the company can use just one, or the company can use the all together and combine all this information to obtain an estimation of the salary more representative of the reality. But when we start to collect the data, we notice that the statistics measures that provided by each website are different from website to website. For example, here in the Glassdoor, we have the median salary, the minimum, and maximum. In the salary expert, we have more statistic measures. We have also the mean and minimal and maximal already. Also, but in the pay scale, we just have the median and the first quartile and the third quartile. So the challenge is how you can use this information to obtain a robust estimation of the salary, more representative of the reality of the market. So, the objective of this work is provide a step-by-step process to estimate the salary mean and its confidence interval by combining the data from different sources or different websites. So the proposed process in this work is the first step of course, is okay, collect the summary statistics set from the websites. The step 2 is identify the scenario that we have in each website. In this work, we consider 4 different scenarios. In the first one, we have the median, the minimum value, the maximum, and the sample size. That is an important measure. And the second scenario, we have the median, the first quartile, the third quartile, and the sample size. In the last 2 scenarios, we don't have the sample size. So you have to deal with these 4 scenarios. The step 3, when we already identify the scenarios, we calculate the coefficient skewness values of the row and the box Cox transform quantiles. We know that to have a good estimation of the mean, the data set has to be symmetric. So what we do first is to apply a box-Cox transformation to transform a data set into a more symmetric. And we use these coefficient values to measure each one, the row quantiles or the box-Cox transform quantiles, is more symmetric or less asymmetric. The first measure used the minimum and maximum values, and the second one is based on the first quartile and the third quartile. After that, in the step 4, we calculate the sample mean and the standard deviation for each case, for each website, and based on the literature, we use different formulas depending of the scenario. In step 5, when we already have the sample mean and standard deviation for each website, we are able to determine the mean and the confidence interval of a specific job for a specific job and in a specific country. The global mean is given by this formula and depends of the sample size that we already calculate, and this factor that is the weighting factor. This weighting factor depends of the sample standard deviation that we already calculate, and also of this term that is the tau square, that estimate the between study variation. We can have different studies and we can have high variation or lower. And if you assume that this between studies variation is equal to 0, we have the fixed effect pool mean. And in the other side, if you assume that the between studies variation is higher than 0, so we have the random effect pooled mean. We calculate this to mean and confidence intervals, and we compare the results. For the tau square, we use this formula to calculate this term. So when the difference in results between studies is higher, the summary estimate, or that means the global mean that we estimate, may be not representative of the whole studies, of the whole websites, or the information that the websites provide. So in addition, we calculate a statistics I square to measure the between studies variation. And if this statistics is equal to 0, so I put here 2 figures to have an illustration of this measure. And if the y square is equal to 0, the between studies variation is not relevant, so it's more is almost homogeneous. But if the I-square is higher than 50%, we have a substantial between studies variation. We can notice here that the mean value provided by the website 6 is lower than the mean value provided by the website 5. So here there are difference between the websites, or the values that are provided by the websites. We test our proposed the process using 7 job titles from from different countries, and we collect data from 5 different websites. As in these 2 last websites, the mean value is available, we use the information of these 2 websites, provide these 2 websites to evaluate the performance of the formulas to obtain the sample mean and the standard deviation. In terms, in this case, the sample mean. So, and we calculate the sample mean for the raw quantiles and for the box-Cox transform quantiles. And as expected, the coefficient of skewness is lower for the box-Cox transform quantiles. That means that the data set is transformed in a more symmetric data set, and the relative error is lower in this case. Here, for the data provided by the Salary Explorer, the relative error is lower in the raw quantiles instead of the box-Cox transform quantiles. And we can notice that the second coefficient of skewness is lower for the raw quantiles, but the first coefficient of skewness is lower in the box-Cox transform quantiles. But the first coefficient depends of the mean, and the second depends of the first and the third quartile. And the mean is obtained by, the sample mean is obtained by this formula, and the first and the third quartile have more weight. So here, if you wanted to choose, if you use the raw quantiles or the box-Cox quantiles, we have to guide, or have to select according to the second coefficient of skewness. Here are the results about the salary mean and the confidence interval. And here in the second column, we can see the mean, the sample mean and the sample size provided by this website that were not used to estimate the confidence interval and the global mean. And we can notice that in the first 3 cases, the mean that we have in the one website not belong to the confidence interval that we obtain. Okay. But in the blue ones, it's okay. The sample mean belongs to the estimate confidence interval, but in some cases not. So we conclude that a higher number of websites is recommended. And this can happen because the salary depends on many factors, including the level of experience, locations, skills, and others. And we recommend the use of random effects analysis. We conclude that the pool salary estimate is more representative of the reality than the salary estimate from just one website. And another quantitative data could benefit from the proposed process. So it's all. Thank you. Any question? Let's see.
The bird, it's an enterprise.
Is a
Enterprise, it's
Bird is a company. It's a Brecht Engineering Research and Design. Is planning do the all things that is needed for a bridge construction. They have the designers, they made the planning of the project.
okay.
They
So
they have engineering that go to
they have
the
a support for everything.
everything. They give the
Proposal
support
and
for
investigation.
everything.
Okay.
Now, so I can introduce you.
I'm yes, you can introduce me. I need to put my things in here. But you can.
Of course.
May I?
Yes.
Oh, wait. We're going to use the. Okay.
Controllers. Ok. Eu vou sentar aqui, não é? Ok. Wait. I think, I don't know if it's this or this. I will open one.
Normal, ok.
Ok.
Agora.
Control L, I think, né? Control, ou tenho que fazer
Não,
o
não,
upload?
agora aqui. Não, agora está bom. Pode ficar assim. Aqui. Porque é aqui que vai correr a apresentação.
Aqui. Ok, sim, porque é no. E agora tenho que fazer o upload. É aqui.
Eu acho que
Não.
não funciona bem, mas aqui funciona.
Ok. Onde é que é o upload aqui? Aqui é este? Não, é. Não.
It's sharing? It's
No.
sharing the screen?
You're not sharing.
Okay.
Onde é que é o upload? It's the dots here. Where is the upload? Sorry.
Yeah, if you.
It's
select
here?
this, yes.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
It's just a presentation, right? It's not movie.
Yes.
Okay, like please click here.
Here?
Yes, and then share.
Okay.
No.
It's not. But my presentation is open.
Yes, like please
So
open your
you have to go
presentation.
to the presentation.
So I'm closing yours.
Okay. And now you open the presentation and it's sharing.
And
Okay.
it's sharing. Like you can go full screen here. Yeah.
Okay.
And you can control from here.
Okay.
The next speaker is Filomena Tudor from Portuguese Naval Academy and Academy from Lisbon, and she will present the work with the title "User Skin and Wearable Equipment Contact."
It's a little different from the program, but it's the same thing. It's just okay. I'm going to talk about work that happened under the aim of a master thesis, and it was also after that completed. I don't know, it's here. Oh, yes, it's here. I have a brief summary introduction, the preliminaries, methodology, empirical application, and discussion and results. Okay, the introduction, I made some details about this, why this work. It happened because rehabilitation treatment has high incidence of resection, and the discontinuation of the equipment is it's about 30%. It means that people do not adapt very well to some processes that they have, and so they need this. The solution is to we be able to get models that simulate the contact between the skin and the skin and the equipment, and make it comfortable if possible. So the essential idea is to consider the contact between user and the device. It's necessary to get the simulation of this. It's necessary to create an equation that substantially reproduces the mechanical behavior of the skin, and to know the application limit of the load. So we need to simulate something that it's to apply a force in some point specific of the body, and to study the kind of reaction of the user, and also what kind of damage or some deviation from usual place is the tissue. So given these changes of the mechanical behavior of the skin, it's desirable to determine the coefficients of these equations and limit the application of the load based on experimental results. Here I do some references that I think that are important. Let's see what's happening. Oh, it's not here, it's here. What I can see the following. I was looking for some references, more actual references than the time that I had this experimentation, and I find lots of them. For example, when that I saw I see that it was very useful. It's that during the pandemic, our doctors had not a good life with all equipments that they wear. Namely, I found some work that's studying the contact of the glasses of protection, for example, and the skin. Another work that I found that it was very nice. It was the to people who wear a helmet. They just studied the contact of with the head skin, and it was very nice to see the results. So it's a very simple thing. We apply the loads on the very specific place of the arm, and study that. So I think I had some preliminaries, some models that we have found that using the idea of that they had people who was submitted to the load had at feeling the maximum loads. We just got a logic model that is here, where we can we establish some limit of the load, and we just studied if the participant it was above some limit or not, and so we just moved the dichotomic model. What we have done, Here is the summary of our process to prepare the tests, to submit the people to subload. We just determine the sample. We have built some questionnaire before and after the test to know if the participant was okay, to have rest enough or not, because it depends of that. The selection of anatomic region and the definition of the trial parameters. During the second stage, and previous to the participant had be submitted to the load, he just answered some of the questions of the first questionnaire. It was pre-experience. After that, we just measured some characteristics of the participants, namely the BM body mass index, measurement of the fat fold. Fat fold, it's just a fold that we do with the skin of the place where we are just load the blood. And the last but not least, the measurement of total length, height, width, and perimeter of the former. The test just consists in the compression and decompression tests. And after that, of course, we just did the data classification. In the third step, it was done as a statistical analysis. It was summarized data, and we just did some models. The empirical application. We have selected 80 people, just 40 women and 40 men. They were aged between 20 and 28. They were, of course, healthy. The participants, we can say that had a body mass values between 40 and 110 kilos. And the weights were between 144 and 1.88. Fat folds, it was between 1.05 millimeters and 10.5 millimeters. After that, we have just the measures of the body mass index between 15.6 kilometer per meter quadrado, square meter, and 34.30 per square meter. We can say that the statistical tests of means comparison were done, so you could complete comparison between men and women, and to compare that, we can see that the average of female fat folds was higher than the males. The body mass and height of the female were lower than the opposite gender, and BMI, the body mass index, presents higher levels for the male compared to the female. Of course, it is usual because the body of the men are much more muscle, that kind of things. Or the next one, here is a table with the details of that what we had said. The questionnaires. The implementation of the questionnaires were carried out with the aim of analyzing and evaluating the psychological component and physical condition of the individual. It's important to know that. Through the pre-questionnaire, parameters such as nervousness, bad night sleep, among others, which may or may not interfere with the dentation tests to be performed, were evaluated. The post-questionnaire aims to interpret the individual's feeling before the indentation to test, after the indentation test to which he was submitted, meaning how the individual himself evaluates pain and discomfort he felt during the test. Here are the questions. The questions: do you feel prepared for test? Did you sleep well tonight? How was your physical activity during yesterday? Are you tired? Do you feel nervous? Are you a sportsman? The post questionnaire: did you feel uncomfortable during the test? Did you quickly research the sensation of pain? Did you receive your maximum permissible pain point? Do you have signs of injury? And was it painful to perform this test? So they are different questions, but we can infer how he felt during the test and how he was physically and mentally feeling previous to the test. The point of the tests were exactly here, the anterior region of the forearm in figure of the right, where the force perpendicular to the lower limb surface are applied at a velocity of 1 millimeter per second. Unbearable until, of course, unbearable pain is perceived by the participant. Here is the equipment. We can see in this the indentation machine. Here is the emergency button, the motor, the load cell, and the indenter. You can see on the right where it was applied the force. Here we can see the software that we were using. Here are the level of forces that you can see during the compression test, and here the decompression test. Okay. The indentators are in this photo. We can see different kinds of indentators. Here, the first one with 5 millimeters, 10 millimeters a second, the third 15 millimeters, and the last one 20 millimeters. The used test was this one with narrow look with the 5 millimeters of diameters. So the kind of force, they are from 10 until 250 newtons, and the formation of the skin of the tissues were from 10 until 50 millimeters, 5 centimeters. The frequency of these results are obtained at a frequency of 40 hertz. The procedure. When the individuals felt the maximum pain limit, a control acts and the indenter turns to its initial position at the same speed. Each individual were submitted to 5 trials, and between each trial there was a 2 minutes break. During this performance, the value of the beginning of the discomfort is registered, just the force applied in the newtons. Each test consisted by the compression of the test until the test point until the individual felt the maximum pain, allowing to register the maximum force Fmax and the deformation values delta. During the test, each participant verbal onset on pain, allowing to obtain the deformation and the threshold value. Here is the kind of the graphics that we can obtain, load versus displacement. The curve it's above, it's corresponded to the compression part, and at the bottom, it's the decompression part. Of course, that we can estimate together this, but it's complicated, and we estimated separately the compression and the decompression graphics. It's already said. Oh, it's missing something. It's missing my part of the presentation. So I have here the article, so sorry. I can discontinue this or I can make a upload of another.
Screen sharing control is here.
Sorry?
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to look. Sorry. I'm so sorry of this. I think I have copied it's not working. I do this. Let me see what's here. Sorry. I have here where is? I have here the date. Let me see where I have the look 45, 42. I'm not seeing I have the 42, but I'm not seeing the 42. Where is the... I have here the consegues ver daí o artigo? Não. Mas está cá que eu pus. Está aqui. So, it's already? Yes. Control L. Não, é muito pequenino, se calhar não. Vou mostrar as... Não está muito bem. Ah, está aqui. Eu tinha muito mais coisas para dizer, não é? Mas pode-se. Here are some... Isto não está muito visível, pois não, tenho por... Ctrl L, Escape. E vou pôr isto a mais. Assim é mais fácil. Já se vê mais alguma coisa, não vê? Pronto. So, não me entendo com este rato. So, we can see in the results here the difference between men and women in the body mass index and the dipole fold. We have done all of these comparisons with adequate tests. We used the comparison parametric tests and non-parametric tests, and all of them just got significant result. It means that p-value was less than 0.05. I have here more. Here we have the maximum load that people just were submitted to. And again, the men versus women were different. We can see that the first block in the figure, it's that in the left, we have significant differences than on the right. And of course, here is in the text that the deformation was also significant with p-values of 0.05. It means that men and women just had different sensibilities to the pain. Okay? Let me see the next. Also, we just identify the correlation between all variables, the maximum compression, the maximum force that they were submitted, the compression at discomfort, and the forced load of discomfort. And also the observed energy, it's calculated with the previous variables. So you can see that there was not significant tests, they are very low, but in non-linear models we got some results. Also, it's not an article, but I have here some results of the test when we just considered the ANOVA. When we considered the ANOVA of the maximum compression relatively to the other variations, to the other variables, we could got a p-value of the significant test of 0.03. It means that it's significant. You could got models. Now I think we are out of time. Yes, so I'm going to continue to the next one. I can present again. Let me just close this, and I have here, let's last modified. I think it's here. Yes. So Control. Let's see animation. Okay. The second work, it's about modeling forest fire occurrence in some regions of Portugal. This is just a first approach. This happened because military people are involved in firefighting and organizing how is the best approach, and they are using UAVs, unnamed aerial vehicles. So they need an application where they can say that at a certain place, at a certain time, with a certain coordinators of latitude and longitude, they need to know what it's the probability of fire. This is a very very initial work. Here is the summary of the presentation, the introduction, methodology, empirical application, discussion, and results. But basically, some details are important to model this. Vegetation fire occur in spread with the presence of unwanted fires. It puts over the suffering in the divorce plants, no matter it was artificial, accidental, intentional, or negligent, or do you like lighting that plant fires are considered natural disasters. Economic and human damage can destroy property as well as environmental damage, endangering material and people's lives. In this sense, the importance of studying the dynamics of vegetation fire propagation, where the modeling area is fire propagation in vegetation fires, an area that is experimental in nature. It stems from human need to understand and consequently develop mechanisms to anticipate and control this phenomenon. We know that because in Portugal we have lots of fires, some of them of big dimension and with some densities. So the idea is to get fire propagation models as tools that can simulate these fires. The propagation of fire, a function of factors regulating the behavior of fire, it's an important issue. We have not all data that it could be necessary, but notice that the integration of these models with data from geographic information system is a qualitative leap forward to the development of computational tools to help create decisions, actions, including vegetation, fire monitoring, prevention, and suppression. The fire is determined by the interaction of three sets of factors: vegetation, atmospheric conditions, and topography. Our data is not my data here. It's not so complete, but we have done something. The methodology, again, we use the logistical model, but we can say that in a logistic model, it's obvious that we can use that in the sense that or it happen fire or do not happen fire. It's a dichotomic action situation, so we can use that, but not so simple as it's here. We need to know this pi. Pi, it's the probability of occurrence of fire. And you can use this kind of, it's simple to modulate this, but we need to know that our problem is a little more complicated than that because it has a special issue because what we have in a certain place, it's different in vegetation, conditions of weather, etc., than in another point of the place. So we can find structure of the logic model with a component that is special in this kind of situation. There is some problem with this kind of models because in the original logic model with this, without this extension, we are supposing that variables are independent. Here, I think that we can say that that kind of supposition is a little complicated because what is happening in some place with some coordinate, of course, it's associated with the point of his neighbor. Okay, but the solution for that can be obtained. Sorry. Of course, that we can also use Sarimas. Basically, we can use Sarimas with seasonal component because we are leading with data that depends clearly of the period of the years. We know that in summer we have lots of fires and in winter not so much. So it depends on the time of the year. Of course, here it's just described usually things that we do in RIMA or SARIMA, but can be used or not depending of the data that we have. What data we had is available until the period of this study. It was from 2011 from 2021, the year, the date and the initial hour of fire occurrence, the duration of the fire, the burn area, total area, the administrative zone, the local, the latitude and longitude. It was really needed to have some data that we didn't have available at the time, like kind of forest and altitude. Altitude is an important detail that we have found in other studies, but we didn't have that in this case, and kind of forest. Also, we didn't have that available, and so our study is a little limited, but even though it had some interest. Here are the number of fires that happened from 2011 to 2021. We can see that the district, this is per district, The district that have much more fires, it was Porto, followed by Braga and Aveiro. We can see the orange, it's the number of fires just in last year, and something that it's very important to observe that the number of fires that occurred in the 2021, it's almost half than the last 10 years. It's not very nice thing, it's just devouring everything, but it's important. Here, it's the burned area per district. It's a little different for the order of the fires that we had previously. Here, the most burned area is in Guarda, Castelo Branco, Coimbra, Viseu. We can see that the fire, there are much more fires in most dense, with much more population and close to littoral, but the burned area, it's much more considering all distances of the interior and where the agriculture is much more spread and where there is much less population. It's just also something that it's here. It's the number of occurrence. Notice this number of occurrence during these last years are just in period of night. You can see from midnight until just I chose all hours until 6 o'clock in morning and after 20, including 20, 21, 22, and 23. We can see that this is just something very strange because the occurrence, the start time was just in period of night. So we obviously the majority it's with human hand. Okay, if we select the period, here is the number of occurrences per day. Okay, but we were expecting something like this. But it's, for me, it's terror in this slide. Here, just a detail between 10 o'clock, midnight and 2 in morning. And of course, we have a lots of fires. So human hand, of course. Again, for the period of last year, it's a little cut, but this is for the period of last year. There are too many, again. And by last, the same idea during the night. So the pattern is equal from last 10 years and from last year, but we can see that the proportion of the fires are much more in last year. Again, same thing during the day. And here we are comparing the different districts. Here in this slide, I have 2 districts. They are with less population, and its majority of area it's forest or agricultural. And we have here different behaviors. On right, we have the number of fires in Castelo Branco and the number of fires in Vila Real. Just comparing 2 or 3, it's in on left, much more this is on right. We can see the different patterns, but here it's the number on left during the hours on right. By last, but not least, here we have the codification of the use of variables. Fire occurrence, it was one of our spline variables are dependent. X1, it's the burned area. It's in intervals of burned area. Okay, the duration again, it's in intervals, and the start fire occurrence time, latitude and longitude were also considered. The model obtained it's here for Castelo Branco. Why I'm saying showing this to Castelo Branco? Because it was in the last years one of the worst pattern of fires. For example, in 2017, I think, yes, we had so much big fire that a lots of that occurred in this. So, of course, now we need to study all of these parameters if they are in according with the idea of the users on the under the organizers of firefighting. But I was seeing some simple analysis. We have a negative relation between the occurrence of fire and if there was a big fire in some previous time. It's also there is a negative relationship if we had a huge burned area recently. So we can see this that it's just in beginning, but it's a model that we have got. Final remarks. Essentially, we just not have the best model. We needed to consider SARIMAs, but we are still studying all this separately. This is just one model that I have put here. We have different models. For example, Villarreal had a SARIMA model. I couldn't get no model in some other districts, so it's just I'm just still exploring the issue. And some references, and thank you. I have, and thank you. Any question? No? From online, any question? No? So we are going to next speaker. Please upload your work.
Like the last presenter is online.
Yes. Yes, that's why I was saying to upload. This is, I think.
Okay, Nile, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear.
Okay, and can you share your screen, please?
Okay.
Thank you.
Perfect.
So please, Niall, the next speaker will be Niall. Sorry, the second name, but I can say it correctly. We are going to talk about mining web user behavior, a systematic mapping study.
Yeah.
Please.
Okay. Hi everyone again. My name is Nail, and I can the subject of the paper is about mining web user behavior. We did a systematic literature review paper on this subject. With your permission, I can start the presentation.
Yes.
The importance of user behavior defined as understanding user behavior can dramatically improve a user's experience. either through better performance, customized user interface features, or better targeted advertisements. Therefore, user behavior attracts attention in the academic community and the private sector. This figure shows the distribution of articles related to web user behavior mining for the last 5 years. In this article, by examining the studies on the subject of mining web user behavior, these studies have not been studied before, or which subjects have been studied more statistically. In line with this statistical information, we present the results on subject mining web user behavior to facilitate future research directions. These results provide academics with statistical data and enabling them to explore unstudied or understudied areas of mining web user behavior. To determine the body of knowledge regarding literature, we posed simple questions. The study questions and their preliminary research goals are listed in the table. Here we research questions and main motivation. Number one is what is the primary goal, necessity, and basic process of mining user or customer behavior. This main motivation is the main purpose is to analyze the click stream and behavior of users or customers in the web environment. Number two is what research concerns in web user behavior mining are covered and how many publications are there to cover them all. The main motivations is number two is determine which research fields are frequently mentioned in articles about mining web user behavior mining. Number three, what are the most common used data types and methods for web user behavior mining? The main motivations is provide data and method for the most often studied web user behavior mining. Number four is which embedding methodologies are used in the previous studies. The main motivation is determine which research embedding methodologies are frequently mentioned in articles. What is the paper publication frequency is the number five. The main motivation is provide a graph with trend analysis. Number six and the last one, which journals contain papers on mining web user behavior. The main motivation is determine which journals research should submit their research to. As part of literature evaluation, we explored digital databases for primary investigations. We choose the keywords web and user or customer and behavior or pattern and mining. And then created search strings using their synonyms. We applied the identical search strings to 4 digital libraries and gathered the outcomes without time constraints after settling on search strings in the table. We did not limit the search by year to track the topics rise in popularity. We found 3,691 papers in these digital databases. To avoid duplicate research occurred from different digital resources, we gathered search results and consolidated them. To find primary studies, we used 3 filters. In the 3 filters, the table lists the filters we used to narrow the search results. We got 86 primary studies at the end of the filtering procedure. Our filters is in here. The first filter is we omitted research from irrelevant journals and conferences. And second filter, to exclude papers that were not relevant, we examined the study title and abstract. In the third filter, we read abstracts and titles, and in certain cases, all papers to apply our inclusion and exclusion criteria. As a result of, we got the 86 primary studies at end of the filtering procedures. We must choose some papers to answer the research questions in systematic mapping studies. In order to ensure that the research selection criteria is objective, we utilize inclusion and exclusion criteria. These criteria are established at the start of the selection process to eliminate selection bias. We use these criteria to restrict two results to select our primary studies. Inclusion criteria, in inclusion criteria, studies that conclusively contributed to the mining of web user behavior were included. We considered short papers, also traditional study papers. We accepted the new version of a study with multiple versions unless there was an expansion to main study. Therefore, both versions are included. In the exclusion criteria, we didn't include research that was not clearly linked to mining web user behavior or didn't look into the matter thoroughly. We also didn't include duplicate publications, book chapters, secondary research, theses, and experimental investigations that didn't suggest a solution or method were rejected. With a view of mining web user behavior as application level logs, application server logs, and web server logs. We gathered 86 studies that we obtained after the filtering procedure. This figure shows how we classified studies. Web data mining is classified into three groups based on the different data mining objects: weblog mining, web content mining, and web structure mining. Our interest is weblog mining. In these three of them, web server logs is user information is logged by the web server. These data can be the user's IP or page references and access time to the web server. Application server logs is a critical feature is able to track various business events and log them in application server logs. In the application level logs it's the logging of the user's clicks and transitions between pages within the application. These logs can be categorized by dividing them into related categories. It may be necessary to use combinations of these logs in order to obtain more meaningful logs. We also classified in this table the research issues as well as the contributions of the researchers. The research issues are the user behavior analysis and web usage or data mining, and clickstream analysis, and predict and analysis users' behavior. We reference this form for the analysis procedures or our data extraction methodology is we choose a small data set at random before beginning the data extraction process for 86 studies. Then using this table as a guide, we extracted data. You think is there like a Excel file? We double check for the same data set, and we produce this research to inspect a conflict and determine what created the conflict when we uncovered it. And we use the data extraction technique to papers to get the findings after satisfying all of these methods on the data set. In the results, we have covered a number of studies topics connected to mining web user behavior. The findings of our literature review are shown in the figure. A total of 79 papers are grouped into 6 different research issues after thorough evaluation and application of inclusion-exclusion criteria. Research question 1 is, what's the primary goal, necessity, and basic process of mining user customer behavior? This is one of the most important necessity for mining user behavior is a well-prepared data set. As the variety and range of the data set expands, the experience offered the user increases. In the research question 2 is, which research issues in web user behavior mining are addressed and how many papers cover the different research issues? Research question 2 aims to find new ways to address unsolved research problems. According to the findings, the top 2 topics addressed by the research community are user behavior analysis and web mining. Clickstream analysis and predicting and analyzing user behavior, and on the other hand, are the most challenging difficulties. As a result, we consider clickstream analysis and predicting and analyzing user behavior the most promising research areas in the coming years. In the research question 3, what are the most common used data types and methods for web user behavior mining? When a web user sends a HTTP request, the movement information is recorded in a weblog file. A log file can usually be located in one of 3 locations. These are application level logs, application server logs, and the web server logs. The data types from the publications that remained after the most recent extractions were evaluated and classified using the 3 criteria listed above. The figure shows the distribution of papers on the study data. According to the result obtained from this graph, it has been observed that the application level logs can be used to more and more valuable and usable results are obtained through this data type. Research question 4 is, which embedding methodologies are used in the previous studies? We discovered that which embedding methodologies are used. Literature has explored in recent years. We divided the embedding methodologies into 2. These are URL embedding methodologies and URL sequence embedding methodologies. The data in this figure show the embedding methodologies, and this table shows that a list of the URL and URL sequence embedding methodologies. Research question we discovered that mining web user behavior literature has exploded in recent years, owing to the widespread use of computers and other mobile phones in everyday. The data in the figure show the overall number of publications per year about the web mining. We believe that there is a relation between the maturity of the topic domain and this. Research question 6 is which journals contain papers on mining web user behavior. A part of in this table, a part of names of the journals are listed in this table, which we studied in this paper. Threats to validity of research. Generally, some situations threaten the general validity of mapping studies. These are research questions, publication selection, and data extraction in selected publications. We have our suggestions for removing these three risks. The research questions may not cover all mining web user behavior issues in detail. We search only a portion of the literature on the mining web user behavior issue at a particular time. As a result, this literature study didn't focus on a particular subject. Publication selection is despite researching 4 big digital databases, we couldn't apply our criterion to all web user behavior mining topic. While we cannot eliminate the threat, we have attempted to decrease it by including as many publications. In data extraction, because of the personal perspectives, it can be significant in the data extraction process. The data were double-checked to mitigate the risk, and the data were analyzed from a subjective standpoint. When an inconsistency was found, the data set was re-evaluated. It was included in the research, was related to our topic. Conclusion and future work. The literature review aimed to identify and analyze trends, data sets, and methods in web mining user behavior. We conclude that web mining user behavior is generally open to new contributions, especially the studies on clickstream analysis show the lack of research studies in this area. The results also demonstrate the intensive research needs of clickstream analysis and predict and analyze user behavior research topics using application level logs datasets. This study is continued by expanding it to make a systematic literature review on the subject of web mining user behavior. We will also explore how to design a framework for clickstream analysis using application level logs data in the future. Thank you for attention. That's all for my side.
Thanks, Niall.
Yes.
Some questions here? No. So I want to thank all
Thank you.
participants. In particular, I can thank Flora for kindly accept we share because I was arriving a little late. And all participants who are all welcome. So thank you, and see you next year, maybe. I don't know. Let's see. Thank you very much. You are closing this session now, and the next people are just waiting to enter. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Considerar isto. Já puxei as minhas coisas. Vê lá.
Sorry, can I leave the room or?
Okay.
It's because it's just next people are just arriving. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
You are.
So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the next session of this very lovely conference on a very lovely place. We are very glad that we can be here. I hope next time our online participants also join us here. So, in this session, we have 4 presentations planned. I can see first 2 presenters here in person, and then I can see Sabrina online. Sabrina, can you hear us, please?
Yes, I can.
Perfect. Okay. Can you also see something here? Okay. So we will start with the first presentation. Here, Ingrid Meirova will present her paper. So,
Thank you.
Ingrid, the floor is yours.
Share the screen for online. Okay, this was yours, right? Yeah. Okay. So once again, good morning to everybody. Or afternoon. So I'm very glad to be here, and I would like to present you our paper or our contribution to our research, which is about the implementation of some web application for city. That is our native one, and that is the city where our university is. Yeah. So our paper has the title Smart Solution for a Smart City, using the open source maps in municipal waste management. My name is Ingrid Meirova, as my colleague said, and I am a part of team of these 2 men, Radim Dolak and Martin Muris, are my colleagues from IT department. They cared about the technical background of this paper, and because I'm an economist, so I gave some economic soul to that paper or research, we can say. This research was done because we had one offer from our municipality management to create some new web application because our city would be like to. It is not so big, about 50,000 citizens, but it presents itself as a smart city, or would be like to be a smart. And of course, we checked the website or applications or e-government services, and we found some gaps in that, and decided to make some application for the waste management. Why the waste? Of course, it is because the waste starts to be a big problem in not only in our country, but in whole Europe and the world. And of course, this management is very important for our city or our level of life. It's one notice. We live in the center of Malaga now, and I noticed that there is built some system of smart bins for the waste for the citizens of Malaga. So it is some inspiration for me. But we didn't solve how to build the smart bins, but how to build some application that serves for the citizens. They want to find some separate waste, so glass, paper, and so on, and communal bins, and so on. So of course it is a part of e-government, so it belongs to the smart governance or good practice or something like this. Of course, this, as I said, this waste is quite a problem. I prepared some figure for you in comparison with the countries of European Union. And you can find the two periods or 2 years, 2005 and 2020, to compare how the waste or amount of waste is increasing or decreasing. So these two notices are about the Czech Republic and Slovak one, because we are two countries which don't solve the waste problem successful. Because when you can see the comparison between these 15 years, so the waste increased in the Czech Republic and Slovak very high level. In comparison with other countries, of course, Luxembourg and Denmark, there are a little bit less successful in comparison with other countries. They decrease the waste or amount of waste, and in a successful way. Romania, Hungary, Belgium, Estonia, they decreased the waste. So waste is a problem, and that's why we would like to do something for that, because we have to go from the bottom, not from the government, but from the people. So. My colleagues choose the very easy, of course, technical tool, which is CMS system, and this is now not in progress, but it is used now because it was done mostly half year ago, and my colleagues created some application for this problem or solving this problem. So only for the participants which don't know where the Czech Republic or our city is, because our city has a long tradition from the 12th century, where the salt was found in our area, and to find a new sources of salt, the coal was found. So we have a very long spa and mining history in our country, in our city, and our district is from the 8 parts of Karviná. Karviná is now a little bit shrinking city, because after the revolution, after the changing the structure of our area of coal mines and so on and so on, we started to have less and less citizens, inhabitants, because lack of jobs. Yeah. So, but still we have 50,000 inhabitants. They produce a lot of waste, so it must be solved. So we have mostly 300 container sites with various kind of containers. Normally, you can find at every place the containers for the communal waste, for the glass, for the plastic, and paper. It is 4 kinds, but on some places you can find the bins for the iron, for used domestic oils, and for some, nowadays not, but before in the corona, for the used masks or respirators, and for some textile products. They are collected for humanitarian aid, so not for the recycling, but for the aid. On some places, or we have some one place when we can collect some bigger gadgets, as electronic tools, and so on and so on. So some bio waste bins there are on some streets, but people have to collect or separate this waste, and have to find very easy where they can get this waste to these bins. So that's why my colleagues prepared this things. Why they choose this Joomla application or system? They said that it is most suitable for this very easy application. We know that we have this word price system, but they said that this Joomla is much more friendly, clearer, and it is very suitable for every version of using. It means of every gadget, so you can choose it for the mobile, for the tablets, for the computers when you want to find something. Yeah. So we have. I don't want to describe this the system how it was work, but we get the 5 steps. Firstly, they, not me, but my colleagues, they made a web hosting on the cloud platform because it is open source. They had to install the software package, then because it is needed for this Joomla CMS, then added the maps, some tool, because it must be done separately. And they started to find some very most suitable system or map add-on, and they compared it for the pleasant use. Yeah, and they found that the so-called FOCA maps, this application was created by the Czech creator, and it is free of charge, has the Czech name, so it is very suitable for that application. So you can see this comparison, all of that features you can find. Yes. So we thought that we will use this Google Maps, but they are not in the Czech language for the Czech users. So these FOCA maps were implemented into this application, and you can see the result. This is the map of containers. Yeah, this is the name because it is in Czech, of course. Yeah, you can find it in that address. You can when you open this application, you can find a lot of places where the containers are, and when you are on some particular street and want to find where the, for example, bio waste container is, you can click on the street with the name of the street. You can see. So sorry, it is in Czech, but it must be Czech. Yeah. So here you can see translation. So the street name and the containers and the amount of these containers. Yeah. So we have one street here in LA, for example, with the number of house. Yeah, and you can see we have 4 containers for combined waste. Bio is 0, so plus for plus 2, glass 1, paper 1, for the iron 0, textile 1, and electro gadget. So the small batteries and so on is 1. Yeah, so if the citizen wants some bio, he should find it in another way. So this is really very easy application for the people. They would like to find the containers via mobile phones or computers. Not all people, of course, in Karviná, because we have a very high percentage of people. They are a little bit older and they don't use these mobile applications or web applications, but they can find it on the sites of Karviná municipality. So, but it is for the, you can say, smart users. Yeah. Okay. So we inspired the municipality management for creating another websites or web applications for the citizens. We were as the first, as the smart or interactive web application, and on March, the statutory city of Karvina implemented or took in process another application, the map of parks. We have a lot of parks because we are older city, so we are quite green, and people can find how, where they can spend their leisure time. Mostly in that parks, there are the playgrounds for the children or some leisure time zones. So for the people, it is quite nice because the Karvina has a quite big area. It's not so big in the amount of people, but big in the area. So when you are on the other side of city and you want to visit another site and you don't know if the parks or playgrounds are there, so you can find it through this map application. So I think that we were some early birds in that implementation of services for citizens in within e-government. So I think that's all that I wanted to say to you. Thank you for your attention, and if you have any questions, you can ask.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Thank you for a lovely presentation. I would like to ask, are there any questions here in person?
So thank you. It was an interesting presentation. As you said, at the moment it's in Czech because it's for the citizens of Canada. But have you thought about English version maybe for tourists?
I can ask my colleagues if they have some. I'm not so sure if it is possible to switch to English. Yeah, because when you open this website, maybe there is the possible to serve this for the foreigners. You know, we have sometimes we have a tourists, but we have more and more international students. Maybe for them could be quite useful if they don't spend on dormitories and they walk through the town or have a private accommodation. It could be interesting, maybe. So I can ask because they. This not project, but it is the amount of city Karvina is still in process, and we develop more and more. So maybe because it was not our idea, it was the idea of the city Karvina. Yeah, to create, and because we cooperate with this municipality quite a lot, so that's why it was developed in that way. But I can ask, no problem, and it is maybe a good idea. Thank you. Yeah.
Just in terms of future extension, ideas about education for citizens to reduce waste creation, like you saw in the beginning, Czech Republic, waste is going up. So many ideas on incorporating education into your platform to bring that down.
You know, I was very surprised when I saw this figure because I know that the Czech citizens are very, very good in separation of waste. But I think that it is not only about the waste of households, it is about the waste of industries and so on. And when you develop, yeah, so I know a lot of firms are now in the regime of some no-waste policy or something like this, but not all. And I think that this problem is the issue of government. It must come from the bottom, from the municipalities, to educate the people. we have a lot of advertisement and so on, but still you can find when I go around the bins or containers, I can see you have 4 or 5 containers for separated waste, and still you can see the bins where there are the plastic, paper, and everything together. Yeah, so I think that it starts in families. Yeah, to separate, to teach the children that these waste is for bio, this waste is for plastic. You know, this education. You can educate the adults when they have let's say no education. It's very, very difficult. But I think that it could be. Yeah, it is, but for the government, and of course I would say the amount of these containers on various places are growing now. Yeah, so maybe 5 years ago, I had to look for the bio container through the Carina, and I took my bag to some. And now I have it in front of my house. So I think that municipality could support this with the growing containers for separate waste. So a lot of possibilities for that. Yeah, so, but education of people is
Perfect. Thank you very much. Are there any questions from our online participants? If not, I have a question. So the website is already running.
Yeah.
For how long time?
It is maybe now it will be maybe 3/4 of year.
And do you also measure how many visitors you have?
We not. I think that it does the municipality. We don't. I don't check it.
I'm just asking because it was very good
but
idea
I think that the people know about it, but only the people they visit the websites. Should we say the municipality? I didn't say any advertisement for that on some other than websites of city. It is the issue of using of e-government of every municipality, you know. Yeah. So, but I think that my parents, for example, even they use these mobile gadgets, don't know it. I have to ask. So, I don't a good idea.
Because
but
in today it's very important to have a website and these applications, but people
to let know the people that it exists is very important also. Yeah. So we have to. It is another challenge for us to let people know.
So one more time, thank you very much.
So you're welcome. So.
And I would like to ask our second presenter.
Okay, so which is smarter Okay, here you are.
Okay, Maria, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. So good afternoon or morning, depends which time zone you're in. My name is Maria Marisvidronova, and this paper we prepared with my colleagues Nikoleta and Katarina. I'm from Faculty of Economics, Matej Bel University, Slovakia, and we deal with the smart interventions for smart cities. This is maybe a bit different than other papers in these sections because we don't deal with the technologies, but interventions which are part of behavioral economics, so-called nudges. Maybe you heard about them, maybe you not. I will introduce them in my presentation. Just to say that this paper is part of a big research project we do with 3 other universities in Slovakia and several municipalities. And we try to identify problematic areas in the municipalities where the behavioral interventions in the form of nudges could help. And we started like 3 years ago. Of course, COVID slowed all the processes down, but we came to some conclusions already, which I can present. And now, okay, I'll just a bit of improvisation because the previous paper was about this waste. And one area we are also dealing in this project is waste management and the separation. And it's not so much about the education, but about the nudges. So maybe I can explain the nudges issue right now. So, for example, there is with the separation with the waste containers, when people don't throw plastics and metal and etc., the biodegradable. One of the solutions is to put a mirror, like when you have on a crossroads, you know, when you mirror, when you come with car, you have a big mirror there, so the cars can be better oriented on the crossroads. And some similar mirror can be placed by the containers, and people, when they are throwing out the rubbish, they see themselves like, oh, I'm doing something wrong. The plastic doesn't belong here. And this is a very simple nudge. Nudges means that you like don't tell people what to do, like very strictly, but you show them like, okay, there is not something right to do. So that's just one example, and that was okay in the connection with the previous paper. But in this presentation, we deal with local fees and local taxes and how nudges can be used in this area and why it might sometimes fail. Right, the structure is, as you can see, at first I'll just explain a bit further about the interventions, then how tax collection in the city of Banská Bystrica works. I will introduce the experiment design, present the results and what we learned from it, which lessons and what we can conclude. Right, so I already said one example about nudges. Another thing, or another big area is this tax collection, because of course taxes and local fees, they are part of local budgets, and every municipality probably faces the problem with non-payers. And once people don't pay, it causes problem either economical, that there is a shortfall in the budget, that the municipality doesn't have enough resources to provide public services, or maybe in a less quality. But it also can have a moral problem, because I pay, but I see other people don't pay, so it's like, hey, why should I pay when the others don't? So that's also a moral problem in this issue. And the application of behavioral interventions, which can be nudged or tackle this problem, they are done usually by sending reminders or letters or notices, but in a different form. Now, many municipalities started implementing this, especially abroad. Okay, probably none of us is non-payer, so we don't receive it, we don't know how it looks like. But when we check what Banská Bystrica has, it's just a formal letter with a lot of writing, like this slide. And it's like, okay, you're supposed to pay, otherwise this will happen, etc. So the idea of this nudge is just to redesign the letter, which is sent to the non-payers, and it's usually based on a principle which calls EAST, meaning it must be easy to read, must be attractive, social, and timely. And several, or I could say many studies have confirmed that the use of such reminder letter was successful, and the tax collection was more efficient, more effective. For example, in USA, they used letter, and for example, they just included one single sentence. The taxpayers, they said, like, you know, that 93% of other people, of your neighbors, already pay their taxes on time. And this brief information caused statistically significant differences, that people who received the letter with this type of information, they paid. They paid more often than those who received the standard letter. Similar experiment was conducted in the United Kingdoms. They also changed the wording of the letter, and again, it was successful, higher increase tax collection. They used different type of letters. They tested, they had like 6 versions, and the most successful was again that they said, you belong to the minority who doesn't pay. And we usually don't want to belong to the minority. It's a social norm. It's something like, oh, I want to be in the majority of the group. And there are a lot of other countries like Poland, Belgium, I don't even have there, Guatemala, Canada, and even one experiment was done in Slovakia, in the municipality of Hlohovec, which was actually inspiration for this research project. We tested it first in this municipality, because it's rather small. And then we built up a research project on it. It was approved by the Slovak National Grant Agency. Okay, to show you the tax collection, the numbers for Banská Bystrica. Okay, it's a rather small city, but for Slovakia, it's the 6th largest with 80,000 inhabitants. And basically, they have around 4,500 non-payers. We conducted this experiment from October to November 2021. And the total debt, the municipality that didn't collect the money was around €500,000. And as you can see in the table, the share of real estate tax on the current tax revenue for Banská Bystrica is almost 1/5, between like 15 to 20%. So it's like 1/5 of the local budget revenues, which is not small amount. And when people don't pay, as I said in the beginning, it affects the public services provision and quality of those services. Okay, and maybe just to say that if the non-pay person who doesn't pay, they got the first and second reminder letter in the first year, and again 2 more reminders in the second year. And if they still don't pay, then the city gives it to external company for bail off. So this is the standard process. And when we approached Banská Bystrica, they were really interested in solving this issue. And what we suggested within our experiment design, we got a big group of 520 people, which was divided into 4 groups. The first is a control group. So basically this 130 people, tax subjects or non-payers, they got the standard letter the city usually sends. And the other 3 groups, we tested 3 versions of a leaflet. I will show you the leaflet pretty soon, so I can explain later. Basically, when we designing these leaflets, we were inspired by other experiments in other cities and also in the one in Slovakia. And then we analyzed the data statistically with using Kramer's mean. To show the leaflets, okay, there are 3 different. This is the printout, but then they were like cut, separated in 3 different leaflets and was added to the letter. The first one is about social norms. My colleagues who understand, they can read it. For others, I'll explain. This one says like join the majority who paid already, and it says like 9 out of 10 taxpayers already paid their tax duty. Be one of them. So basically, we tried to do something which I said in the introduction, that we want to be part of the majority. And there was also like infographics, like 9 out of 10 paid, and you should. There is this man holding €1, so you should pay too. The second leaflet, it didn't use social norm, but it was so-called deterrent, which means it's supposed to slightly frighten the non-payer. It says pay, and you will avoid the execution. And it just says that, okay, there is high probability that we find out you didn't pay your taxes on time, maybe it's just a misunderstanding, maybe you forgot, but please pay now, otherwise you can be in the execution process and you can lose your driving license. And this is the standard legal procedure in Slovakia, that you can lose your driving license and later on your bank account can be blocked. So basically this was the second one. And the third leaflet, again, it was a social norm which says join the paying majority, but the wording was different. Here we just said 9 out of 10 pay. And here we said, do you know that people with the same surname as you have already paid? Because sometimes we identify stronger with the community, and it's like, oh, they have the same surname, and I don't want to be on a blacklist or something like that. So these 3 types of letters, they were sent. And what happened? We find out that based on the data obtained from this experiment, 182 people, which is 48%, paid their arrears or their debts, the taxes. This was the people with the intervention leaflets. And in the control group, we just received the standard letter. Surprisingly, there was a higher success rate of tax collection. So in our case, the nudge wasn't successful. We might say that it didn't work out because the standard letter, which is just letter without any leaflet, without any nudges, worked better. But we also statistically tested it, of course. I mentioned the Kramer V. Here is the p-value and the Kramer V, and basically it says the same, that for all the intervention groups, the value was lower, and basically it might seem like the nudge didn't work. So what we learned from this, or yeah, that would be the best to show the lessons learned. And to explain, like we were like, at first we were sad, like why we didn't work. We promised the city some results, it would be great, it would be better tax collection, and it didn't work out. So after the first confusion and the sadness, we said, okay, so there are some lessons we can learn from this. Maybe why it didn't work out. We try to identify those factors and what can be done differently in the future. Basically, to start with, the communication with the city of Banská Bystrica was difficult. We had the full support of the mayor, we have the support of the deputy mayor and other departments, but the two ladies who were appointed to give us the data and do all the communication with us, they weren't so keen, and it was really complicated. And for example, they said, no, we can't give you this, we can't give you that because it's against the law. And then we showed, okay, but in Hlohovec, this Slovak city I mentioned before, in Hlohovec, they did it. So probably they didn't do something against the law. And they was like, oh, okay, so we will give it to you. But it was like really, and plus the COVID situation, so it was like very, very complicated. And then even forced, because we again had to ask the mayor and vice mayor to intervene and tell these two civil servants to cooperate. And basically, then we did some like back literature review, and we find out that it's not something new. It's quite common that civil servants, they have, it's called like civil servants resilience. They do not want to cooperate because, of course, they have their own agenda. They are maybe overloaded, and now they get this extra work, and they are not so keen to cooperate. So this could be the one issue why it didn't work, because we didn't get the all data we needed. For example, like on gender of the non-payers, of age, if they are like chronic non-payers, so that means they don't pay the taxes regularly, or maybe this was just the first time they didn't pay. And other details we didn't get from them. Another factor could be the heterogeneity of these groups. Because the city of Banská Bystrica, they chose 3 types of payments. They were real estate tax, there was a dog tax, and the waste collection tax, or municipal waste fee. So and again, it could create differences because it's different if within the group there were people who didn't pay for the dog, which is like maybe 15, 20 euros, or there could be somebody with real estate taxes and it owned 1,000 euros. So for such a person, okay, maybe the leaflet was like, okay, I don't have money, so how can I pay? Okay, I already mentioned the lack of information about the research sample, that we didn't get all the information. And this is interesting. Then there's a premature disclosure of information about this experiment, and that Banská Bystrica is participating on such a project because we have elections this year, local elections. And last year it basically started, maybe you know the situation, it's before election, so the municipality or the government of the municipality wants to show off, and it's suddenly like, okay, we need to do new pavements, we need to fix the roads, we need to like improve everything, so we are re-elected. And they also use this information, it was in local media, and I think even in the national media, TA3. And they said they were sort of like very proud, we are part of such an experiment, and we cooperate with the university, and we're doing this for citizens, etc., etc. And basically, it was before even the leaflets were sent out. And this could also influence the taxpayers and the people, because again, another research like Shams or Hammer, they already also came to some conclusion that people don't like to be manipulated and doesn't maybe need to even do the research. Like everybody says, I don't want to be manipulated. And if somebody saw it on TV or read it in a newspaper, like, oh, so they're trying something new. No, I'm not going to pay maybe on purpose just to prove the point. And of course, COVID, like a factor which now everybody has to count in. It could have a negative impact on the ability of people to pay. I already mentioned if somebody like they don't have money because there are really some cuts in the family budgets and personal incomes. People had to stay at home. So even with the cool leaflets we prepared, they didn't have money to pay the tax. So they just ignore it, and maybe now they pay with the second round. But this is in the process of evaluating the data. So these are the factors we identified, and this basically opened for us a new field of new area of research that maybe it's good to have a look also on the factors who can cause the failure of nudge. Because most of the papers, most of the research, they present the successful nudges, like it worked, it was perfect, everybody's happy. But I think it's important to also show that sometimes it doesn't work, it might fail, and why it fails. And in the future, it is possible to avoid which of the factors. Basically all of them, but the COVID, nobody could count in COVID. And the conclusions, it's just to recap, to say that, okay, our nudge didn't work because the percentage was lower with the intervention leaflet. And we consider the main reasons out of those I presented that it was the heterogeneity of the group, that really it was inconsistent and we didn't have the data on the, like, okay, the municipality really prepared, because they divided the groups, they prepared it, and they tried to do it like, okay, in every group would be roughly the same amount of non-payers for those three types, for the tax, for the dog, for the based fee. But even so, when we checked like backdatedly or backwards, we find out there were differences. Like really, in some of the groups, there were debts from 160 euros to 12,000 euros, and this could probably also skew the results. So in the future, we will try to. It will be us who will divide the groups. So maybe it will be statistically more coherent. But on the other hand, when they did it, at least was really objective. Nobody can say that we somehow manipulated data. Right, so this was my presentation. Thank you very much. And,
Thank you very much for a very interesting presentation. As a Banska Bystrica inhabitant, I hope I didn't forget to say any,
you will
text.
get the letter.
I will get your letter. So, are there any questions?
May I ask, you mentioned that this skill of lens. They implemented all these taxis.
Yeah.
Or,
they did only. Hlohovec did only for taxis, but they had a really like full set of data. That what I said, we lacked the information. They had everything, and they could do a better statistical analysis, the correlation based on age, gender, and for example, I forgot to mention. Thank you for the question. That in Hlohovec, there is less population of Roma inhabitants. In Banska Bystrica, we have quite big Romani population, which are like socially weaker. They usually don't have jobs and they don't have money, basically. So
the results of this mission, we can say, to have the data, how they.
Yes, because one of the cooperating university is the one who did the experiment in Hlohovec. So basically, we really just copied the experiment design, and that's surprising, it didn't work out. And these were the factors we could find out that in Hlohovec, this was different. And here it was like I presented.
Do you have any ideas of where you might apply these techniques to other areas, not just tax collection, but other areas?
Yeah, thank you for the question. Well, as I said, we have also other areas like waste management, and for example, we sprayed the marks because people, when they throw smoke, they usually throw the cigarette and on the floor. They don't consider it as a rubbish. They just put it on the floor or chewing gums. So usually the bus stops, at least in Slovakia, are quite dirty, polluted with this. Although the rubbish bin is there, it's there on the bus station, but people are like 20 meters and okay, here's my bus, and that's it. So what we did, we used the like pink and yellow, really bright sprays, and we marked them on the floor. And this was also inspired by abroad, some experiment abroad. And I presented this research in Ljubljana like 2 months ago. So here it was successful. For example, we found out that before this spraying, the landmarking, there were like 3,000 chewing gums on the floor. And after we used the spray, and because the city cleaned it, and then we used the spray, basically it was reduced from 3,000 to 200. So that was really, really very good. And other one is, it could be for the cigarette ends I mentioned. So the rubbish bin is not just the rubbish bin, but it's also like ballot bin, which means that you can vote, because people, again, it's a like psychological, this behavioral economics, it works with our behavior, how we behave. And we are like to be asked questions because then we feel important. So the question is like, for example, what was first, egg or hen? And people can vote. They throw their cigarette ends into and they can see the level of how many cigarette ends. So, but for example, we ask the questions because next to Banská Bystrica, there is a municipality of Zvolen, and they are like rivaling cities, and they both play ice hockey. So like, okay, who's gonna win the ice hockey this year? And you know, because it was Banská Bystrica, so everybody was throwing, and the container, the rubbish bin was really full very soon. And again, it decreased the amount of the cigarette ends on the floor. So the bus stop area was cleaner. So these are other 2 areas, but there are plenty more. With these nudges, it's like, for example, the food, when restaurants had to throw away the food, how they can use nudges, so to decrease the level of etc.
Perfect. Thank you very much for many very inspirative ideas. So thank you one more time. And now I would like to ask our next presenter, Sabrina Francesca Pellegrino.
Yes.
So the floor is yours. You can share your screen so we can see your presentation. Perfect. We can see your screen now. Great. Perfect.
So can you see my screen?
Yes, you can see your screen.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so good morning, everybody. And before starting, I would like to thank the organizers for the opportunity to have this talk. The title of my presentation is A Traffic Model with Junction Constraints for Smart Cities Development, and is related with a crossroad phenomenon which has empirical evidences, and this phenomenon is called capacity drop. I will start by introducing the problem, and I will show you some simulations. So, we consider a merge consisting of 2 incoming and 1 outgoing roads. The incoming roads are parameterized by the negative real line, while the outgoing one is parameterized by the positive real line. And in this way, the junction is located at x equals 0. On each road, we describe the traffic evolution by the Lytle-Witham-Richer model, namely by a scalar conservation law of this form. Here, rho h is the density of vehicles, fh is a bell-shaped flux along the h road, and we assume that the initial conditions are summable and with bounded variations. And finally, we require the conservation of the number of vehicles across the junction. we say that the vector function rho is a weak solution if each component is a function with a locally bounded variation and is a Kreutzkopf entropy solution, and if the conservation at the junction hold. However, this definition does not ensure uniqueness of the solution, and therefore, to get it, we need to select a Riemann solver at the junction. The choice is made by following ad hoc admissibility criteria. We call admissible Riemann solver at the junction a map which, associated to any constant initial condition, a self-similar weak solution of the problem. The solution is given by the solution of three initial boundary value problems with initial data rho h0 and the boundary data three suitable data rho hb. In order to select the unique, physically meaningful solution within the family of weak solution, a necessary condition is to ask equality of incoming and outgoing fluxes for the boundary data, but this is not sufficient. Indeed, the initial boundary value problem on each road may produce a solution which does not attain the boundary value pointwise. So we must ask for the solution of the initial boundary value problem to have negative characteristic speeds on the incoming road and positive characteristic speed on outgoing ones. Then we require the consistency property, and finally the boundary data have to maximize the passing flow at the junction. Now I will introduce some important concepts I need to select the boundary data, maximizing the passing flow at the junction. So we define the equilibrium sending capacity and the equilibrium receiving capacity. The first one represents the maximum vehicles try to access the junction, they could hinder each other's, and the consequence is the reduction of the maximum allowed flow on the outgoing road. One of the first models able to represent such phenomenon was proposed by O. Baston and Chitur in 2005. They suggest to introduce a new receiving capacity. Instead of maximizing the flow through the junction over the region defined by the passing flow, they suggest to make the maximization over a subregion. Here, G is the constraint function. It is a non-increasing Lipschitz continuous function having this shape. Its maximum is the maximum of the flux for the outgoing road, and it attains its minimum in correspondence to the maximum of the flux on the first incoming road plus the maximum flux on the second incoming road. And from a physical point of view, it expresses the fact that when too many vehicles try to enter in the same road, there is a sort of mutual embarrassment which reduces the capacity of the outgoing road. This model presents two difficulties. Indeed, we observe that the Riemann solver associated to this model is not consistent. And be aware that consistency does not mean that the model is not realistic. It simply means that the boundary values are not fixed point for the associated Riemann solver. And moreover, Obastan and Chitur observed that in their simulation, the solution associated to the model may have a traffic jam that persists forever, even if the initial condition led to a very moderate congestion in the solution associated to the model that does not represent the capacity drop. The lack of consistency means that the Riemann solver provides no stable solutions. And as a consequence, if we implement this solver in a finite volume numerical scheme, we do not observe the expected solution as it is destroyed after few iterations. This figure plot the boundary values as time evolves for different space steps. And we can observe that after few iterations, the method stabilizes itself around this value. Which represent the stable point for the solver. And in order to overcome the first aspect, we introduce an iterative version of their model, and we fix the second one by considering a non-local point constraint. So we define the local effective receiving capacity as the minimum among these quantities. Here T is the composition between the trace operator and the Riemann solver associated to the Obastan-Eschitur solver. And in practice, the idea consists in iterate the procedure used to obtain the boundary data, and by a case-by-case analysis distinguishing between good and bad datum on each road, we prove that consistency is obtained after 3 iterations. And of course, we need to stress that our analysis heavily depends on the assumption on the constraint function, and in particular, the fact that the consistency is obtained after 3 iterations is not true in general, but depends on the shape of the constraint function G. Moreover, in order to have a more realistic and regular representation of the transient behavior between congested and free traffic, we implement a non-local point constraint by defining a non-local effective receiving capacity. Instead of defining the passing flow looking at the density at the junction, we define it by considering the average density in a neighborhood of the junction. Of course, the assumption of the fluxes ensures the existence of strong traces for the problem. G is the constraint function as in the Obastan-Eschitur model, and zeta I are the weighted average of the density, and the weighted function Wi is an increasing map with compact support. Sorry. This choice is driven by the fact that in real life, the maximum achievable flow at the junction is more affected by the closest densities, while it does not take into account far densities. We made some simulation in order to compare local and non-local models. So we consider a Cauchy problem. We take the same flux on each road, having the shape as in the first figure here. We fix a constant non-zero initial condition on the incoming and on the outgoing roads, and a condition like this on the second incoming road. We choose the priority factor alpha equal 1 alpha and a constraint function and a weighted function, and we fix the space and the time steps for the simulations. The figures show the zoom of the profile of the solution along the first incoming road in the neighborhood of the junction as time evolves. As we have already explained, even if the initial condition led to a moderate congestion, the shock in the solution of the local model is never reabsorbed. And on the other hand, the non-local model reproduces a more realistic behavior as congestion is reabsorbed in finite time. The figures show the dynamic of the shock on the first incoming road in the solution corresponding to the local and the non-local model. On the x-axis, we represent time, and on the y-axis, we represent the distance from the junction. We can observe that the non-local approach allows the traffic jam to disappear at an increasing rate, but with the other approach, the congestion keeps growing forever. Additionally, we run simulations using the same setting and data at varying the support of the weighted function. We plot the profile of the solution on the outgoing road for 3 different supports of the weighted function W at 3 different times. The first line shows that the capacity of the junction diminishes gradually, but congestion lasts forever. This fact might be interpreted by the lack of self-organization strategy by the vehicles. In the second line, we can observe a capacity recovery after the capacity drop, and instead this fact might be interpreted by a sort of self-organization by the vehicles. Finally, in the last line, the capacity drop becomes so small that it practically does not have any impact on the behavior of the solution. Underlying this aspect is important because this property could help drivers to choose the best route from their present location, and moreover, this represents a first step to calibrate the parameters of the model and to positioning traffic sensor in an efficient way. So to conclude, at this moment we are studying the coaching problem at the merge subject to a constant and a piecewise constant constraint on the receiving capacity. This represents an important step in order to study the well-posedness of the Cauchy problem associated to the model and to have a mathematical proof of the convergence of the numerical scheme we implemented for the simulation. And moreover, we are interested, of course, in the calibration of the parameters of the model with the real traffic data. So that's it, and I would like to thank you for your attention.
Perfect. Thank you very much for a very nice presentation. Are there any questions, either here or some of our online participants? Well, I have a question. Which software tool did you use for your calculations?
I implement a volume scheme. It is a typical scheme we use when we have to deal with the scalar conservation law, and it consists on the implementation of a Godunov flux, which is a numerical flux which is consistent, Lipschitz continuous, and allow us to maintain the stability of the model at the junction where there is a discontinuity in the solution of all the network.
Perfect. Okay, so, well, if there are no other questions, I would like to thank you one more time. And if you can please stop sharing.
Yes, sure.
Now. So our last presenter in this session, Maria Konfiová from Slovakia. Can you hear us? Please give us feedback if you can hear us. And if you hear us, you can start sharing your screen. Perfect. So
Okay, she can share the screen, but we cannot hear you. Please unmute yourself. No, participant is muted.
So Maria, if you can hear us, please unmute your microphone, please. So yeah, you have to find the way. The way is here, right?
Yeah.
But she by
cannot
herself.
see it.
So we can see your screen. We can see your presentation.
It's the presenter's trying.
Yeah.
So like she's trying, but.
Yeah.
I can say if you are using Firefox, like please change to Chrome. Like it also affects sharing the like using the microphone.
We cannot unmute her from here.
No, like I can just like ask her to unmute, which I did already, but I cannot control it. Unfortunately.
Mobile phone, so we can call her and explain in Slovak.
Yeah, okay. Like she has to.
So you recommend Chrome
yes,
better than
yes, like we had problems in Firefox.
Hello, Monica.